A very good evening, a warm welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, presented by Pick and Pay. And if I'm slightly out of breath, I just dashed back from a rather long and particularly good lunch at Zoo, David Higgs's latest spot. But I'll only be able to say that for about another week because his next spot is opening in about a week or so. It's not another restaurant, it's more of a very high-end convenience store at a petrol station. David Higgs, the petrol attendant. But we'll keep you updated on that. What I can tell you is that the food at Zoo is quite superb. There's a bit of a Peruvian slant to it all, lots of ceviche and the like. And they've also got a rather splendid wine list. And you're going to be seeing a bit of Zoo next week when our first of the year's recorded episodes in its new format goes out. Look out for a slightly more magazine-style show, which enables us to just get a bit more content in. And the next week's show, as well as having a look at Zoo and the wine list and the food and the surrounds, and gee, it's a good-looking spot. We will also be chatting to Tinashe Nyamudoka, the Zimbabwean sommelier and wine entrepreneur, about his range of wine and some other quite cool projects he's got on the horizon. And that's at the Short Market Club, the Johannesburg version thereof, and also at Marble, catching up with Stuart from Takara, Stuart Buerta, with the new releases from the Stellenbosch estate. So that is on the horizon next week, along with a couple more very cool shows. What we've got coming up this evening is a show I've been looking forward to doing for a little while now, because there is a new look to the Cape Winemakers Guild. They have a new chair, there are new members, they've got new protégés, there's a new board. It is all very, very exciting for an institute that both celebrates great South African winemaking, but also does an enormous amount for charity. And we'll find out from our guild members exactly what the guild is about and what they've got planned for the year 2022. So that's coming up in just a moment as we bring you our new chair, Gordon Newton-Johnson, by some distance, the best looking of the Newton-Johnson brothers, along with Erika Obermeyer, no stranger to the show. She is one of the new members, along with Alex Starey from Kearmont, who's with us, and Richard Kershaw from Richard Kershaw Wines. And we will also be speaking to Mosima Mabelele, who is one of the new protégés who joins us as well. So that's all coming up in a moment. But first of all, let's have a look at some of the latest South African wine news. And we kick off with news of this. Now, that's Lieback, which you might recognize, the estate in Stellenbosch. It's just been sold. We're not sure how much for, but we do know who to. At the start of the week, we're discussing Patrice Motsepe buying the Hidden Valley estate, largely, I felt, so he could guarantee a reservation at Overture. In this case, it's the next door neighbor who's bought the property. Canoncop have acquired Lieback. I don't know too many details beyond that. Will Arbery be making wine in both spaces? Will they keep the Lieback label? How's it all going to pan out? I'm sure we'll know in the next little while. But an interesting development, and one that, according to Mike Radcliffe, is going to happen more and more as we see wine estates begin to consolidate. Now, speaking of Mike Radcliffe, he's made an acquisition himself, not a wine estate, but a rather experienced and exciting member of the wine workforce. There is a new CEO of his wine business advisors company. Roland Peens has joined his team. Formerly a wine seller, does a lot of work with Strauss, consults in all manner of wine businesses. He's been a regular on the show with his better half, Higo Jacobs, and he has taken over as the CEO of Wine Business Advisors, with Mike taking on the role of chairman. And they're going to be doing some exciting work this year, I am sure. And also excitement coming up in just a couple of weeks now, the Valentine's weekend on that Saturday at Coin Rock, the 12th of February. It is the Cape Wine Auction 2022. It's a slightly scaled down event, which means, I'm afraid, the save the date is now redundant if you were planning to go to the auction, because every single ticket has been sold. It's a slightly smaller audience, but it is still a fabulous event. It's a great cause. And normally I would be there as host and auctioneer. I will be at the Dimension Data Pro-Am tournament at Fancourt instead, which I have a long-standing commitment to. Sadly, the dates clash. They're both terrific events. Very happy to be at the Dimension Data, but always sad to miss out on the Cape Wine Auction. But it'll be a great team there, and we will be speaking not next Monday, the following Monday, the 7th. Yes, the 7th. We'll be chatting to Raymond Love, who's the chairman of the Cape Quiet Auction. We'll also be chatting to Paul Kluver, who is on the board of the auction committee, and we'll be chatting to Wendy Applebaum about their wines, about the auction, about how it is all going to play out. So there you go. There's some wine news for today. Right, well, let's head into the show, and we've got some terrific guests. The new chair of the Cape Winemakers Guild, 3 new members of said guild, as well as one of the new protégés, somebody whose name you might not know now, but in a decade, I suspect the entire wine community and beyond will know rather well, because these protégés have a habit of turning into something rather special. So let me say a very good evening to all of our guests. Guys, a warm welcome and lovely to have you all on Dan Really Likes Wine.
Good evening. Yeah, good to be here.
Well, let's get a sense of the guild first of all. I got a very strongly worded email from Kate at the Cape Winemakers Guild. You address him as Mr. Newton-Johnson. You don't look him directly in the eye. We need a list of questions in advance. Of course, disregard all of that. Go on and welcome back to the show. Thank you chiefly for not including Bevan. So it just lifts the whole feel of the show immediately and makes it far classier. It also gives us the opportunity to both congratulate you and find out a little bit more. So congratulations, first of all. Give us your thoughts. First of all, was it an easy call to make? Was it one you were enormously proud of? Did you have to give it a lot of thought before accepting?
Thanks very much, Dan. I mean, I was sold the idea by Andrea Molyneux. I mean, I joined her as vice chair for 2 years before taking on the chairmanship role. So you get some idea of what the role involves. But I think it was just a great opportunity to firstly support her role, especially during the whole COVID period as well. But yeah, once again, I mean, all our members are, my much admired friends and colleagues, a lot of them, my heroes as well. So yeah, I think it's an immense privilege to be leading them and hopefully onto some exciting new things in the year.
I'm sure it's an immense privilege. It's certainly an honor that is greatly deserved, because you've put an enormous amount into the wine industry for many years now, to the Guild in particular over the last 2 in that deputy's role. What is the role of the chair? And then beyond that, there might be people watching saying, okay, well, I know a little bit about the Guild. It's lots of very famous and very well-established winemakers who've got this rather cool club. But what does it actually do? So give us the rundown of Chairman Gordon's role, and then from there, what the Guild platform is beyond just this collection of winemaking superstars.
Well, the Guild has a lot of different activities to it. One of them being, and probably the most important, is mentoring the next generation and fast-tracking social upliftment within the wine industry. And then it, as it started in 1982, which was 8 winemakers getting together and wanting to just share ideas and inspire each other to make better wines, to put South Africa on the map. And I kind of see myself in that role, is that we've got to just keep pushing the boundaries with the innovative ideas that we're coming with, and with the excellence of our wines, and furthering the relevance of South Africa in the world context.
It's a great space. You do an enormous amount, and the people you mentor, as I mentioned earlier on in the show, do seem to go on and do great things regularly. You've also got some new members to add to this club. I'm going to talk to them at the moment. Before we do that, I want to chat to our new protégé in a second. Run us through that protégé program before we introduce our new young winemaking star. How does the protégé system work, and what are the aims of putting it together?
Well, we first started with what we call the Cape Winemakers Guild Development Trust in 1999, and then the protégé program followed soon afterwards in 2006. And what it basically is that we get graduates, wine graduates, either from University of Stellenbosch or from Elsenburg, and we support some of them with bursaries in their final years, and then also encourage them to join the Protégé program, which is a 3-year internship. So they would come in, they would attend a lot of the events and the workshops that we do with the guild. But then they got the opportunity to work in different vintages and throughout the year with a lot of our members. And I think that's where the real mentoring comes in. They can see, the role it takes to be, a successful winemaker and everything that it takes. And then also just build up their own confidence, their own model for wines they want to make, and just inspire creativity. And so it's been a very successful program over the years, and it's something we want to strengthen and broaden in the next few years.
Well, if we were to judge the potential of a winemaker simply by the smile, I think we've got another great one on the cards, because Mosima is our protege with us today. We've had a number of proteges on the show over the last couple of years. I sense there's a great deal of excitement. Mosima, talk me through the process of wanting to become a protege and then finding out that you've got one of the spots.
Thank you so much. Hello. I am Mosima. I just applied because I was doing this, the course for 4 years in Stellenbosch University. So I needed to be guided through going forward, since I only did the theory work. So now I wanted more on the practical side of it. So I saw the program as a good opportunity to be in and be able to just experience and learn more in it.
The interest in wine, Mosima, where does that come from?
I don't really know, hey? I was just applying in one of the bursaries, and then I just saw the name. I had to just click and find out what everything is. So I wasn't even drinking wine back then. It was just for street and all that, but I didn't even drink. So I got here, and then that's when I developed the interest, just from learning from it and all the tastings that we've been doing in class, and some of the wine farms that I've been going to. Sorry.
Now, you basically do what all Stellenbosch University students do. In fact, I think most university students in the Cape, you spent your university career drinking wine. You just did it as part of your class, and it was academic, which makes it a really shrewd decision. You went from somebody who didn't drink at all to now becoming a protege. You've got through 4 years. Was there something for you particularly about wine that had a magic, something that clicked with you and made you really feel, yep, this is what I want to be doing?
I'll say maybe the vineyards. When I first went to the vineyards and we were doing pruning, and just how they were so different to all the plants. So I was like, this is something else. Maybe I should just see the whole process from planting and until it gets to the bottle. So the interesting part was just seeing the vines.
And they've now become an integral part of your life and of your career. It's a career that has you now as one of the proteges. I know that you spend a different year with a different wine estate. Where are you starting off your protege tenure? Which estate are you working with?
I'm at Hartenberg right now, even in the lab.
Mosima, I'm going to phone you after the show to see if you can smuggle some Gravel Hill Shiraz out from under Carl's nose and get it to me up in Johannesburg. You're in really, really good hands. I want to come back and chat to you a little bit more about wine in a moment, Mosima, but let's head over to our 3 new members who you'd probably look at the list and say, weren't they members already? These guys are amazing winemakers. Well, they're all very young, and they've all, in a very short space of time, achieved a great deal winemaking-wise. And they've all got terrific stories. And the Erika story has been told many times on this show, but I still love it. Leaving Graham Beck rather bravely, plunging out into the unknown, and now having queues of kilometers outside her wine operation to try and buy what little of her wine remains, which leads to an important first question, Erika. I think since the last time we had you on the show, there is a new official home for Erika O Wines. Is that correct?
Hi, Dan. Yes, I think that we can celebrate with a great glass of red. Yes, I'm so excited. I bottled my first wines just over a week and a half ago out of my own facility. So we're not 100% ready to open for tasting, but soon I'll invite everyone down for sharing a great glass in Stellenbosch on Baden-Powell. So that is just kicking off the great 2022, and we're looking forward to produce our first wines from our own facility.
I'm not going to put you on the spot because it's an impossible question to answer in terms of what's more exciting in 2022, finally opening your own home of your own brand wine or becoming a member of the Cape Winemakers Guild, because they're both fantastic pieces of news. But give us your response when you got the phone call or Gordon slipped a note under your front door. How did you find out? What was the process? And what was the response? How excited were you when you had got the nod?
I remember it very well. It was an incredible moment. I was actually busy preparing for bottling, and when Gordy phoned me, and it was incredibly special because I started my Erika Obermeyer wines career doing tastings around South Africa with Gordy, and he knew the brand quite well. So it couldn't have come from a better person. You know, I was elated. It was just incredible. I think to get this recognition from the industry, from your peers, and we always aim to make wine for consumers and our customers to enjoy. But it's really lovely if there's just that not as thank you, and it's just a huge privilege to be part of the guild.
And I think it speaks to something that I see time and again when I'm engaging with the wine industry. At a very basic level, we've got 4 established winemakers on the show, one young winemaker just starting her career. But if somebody goes out in an ideal world where you're in the right branch of Pick and Pay that's got all of these wines stocked, and you buy a bottle of wine for dinner, it could be a bottle of yours, or it could be a bottle of Alex's, it could be a bottle of Gordon's, it could be a bottle of Richard's. So there's competition, and you'd expect that you'd get more of a sense of that. And if winemakers fighting for the ability to sell a case or a bottle here or there. And yet that's almost never the case in my experience. It's such a united and engaging and supportive space. And this guild seems to be kind of the very top layer of all of that.
Most definitely. Since that very first moment becoming a guild member, I felt so encouraged by the support, phone calls, messages, and I have to congratulate Richard and Alex. I mean, I feel really chuffed to be part of the group that got into the guild at the same time. I mean, they're incredible winemakers, and I think I'm really lucky to be in that photograph as a new guild member with them. But yeah, it's incredible. The wine industry is really incredible too. We work not only with the product that we can enjoy. I think we're outside, we're in nature, we get to do really incredible job, and it doesn't feel like work. But most of all, I think it's the togetherness and that just being part of something, and you always know you just help is just a phone call away. And the industry really they come together and they just persevere and they push through, and yeah, that is incredible to be part of.
Well, let's head across to another of your new teammates, so to speak, before we get his excitement on the guild. Alex, it's the couple of weeks of the year when winemakers actually do some real work as the harvest comes in and everything gets prepared. How's harvest going? Is it started? Is it well underway? And what are the thoughts so far?
Dan, thank you. Thanks for having me. Fortunately, it hasn't started yet because all of my white wine is still in barrels. We're planning to take it out tomorrow. So I like to work to a deadline. And this year, we certainly, with all the heat, everything's sort of coming on a little bit earlier than expected. So under a little bit of pressure at the moment.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time off to celebrate the new guild role. We have a very excited Erika with us. Is it an equally excited Alex?
Yeah, Dan, I'm thrilled. It's a great honor, to be included in a group of winemakers with so much experience, and also the younger, more dynamic crew as well. I think having been asked to join the guild and looking at the guild and really realizing what it's all about. It's about getting together and tasting great wines together and chatting about them and assisting each other in making better wines. And that's a great prospect for myself, to have an even bigger network than I had before.
Tell me a little bit about that network and being a part of it. I think of many episodes we've recorded of the Dan Nichols Show where I speak to a young sports person who has just begun his or her club or international career and speak about how they're suddenly at training with people who 6-7 years before they had posters of up on their bedroom wall. One minute they're a 12-year-old idolizing Brian Habana, and next thing they're throwing a pass to him or trying to tackle him during a Stormers or a Springbok practice session. Is that something similar for you, that the guys who, when you started your winemaking career, oh geez, that's Kevin Arnold, oh my goodness, and now he's a fellow member of the guild, as so many of these other established stars are?
Yeah, I think Erika really touched on it earlier, and I can say that my experience has been incredible thus far in my career. I will never forget starting off at Kearmont. I was a young viticulturalist, and we started making a little bit of wine and that sort of thing, and phoning people to ask them about what sort of vineyards to plant, what vines, clones, and rootstocks and that sort of thing, or establishing the winery. And just how open all of the other winemakers were. I mean, I could name quite a few people who I called to get advice. I will never forget going to see Artie Badenhorst when he was still at Rustenburg. I phoned him about some Cabernet clones, and he said, "Well, come on over and we'll go to the vineyards and we'll taste some wine in the barrels and all that sort of thing." And I mean, you don't get many industries where your so-called competition or whatever just invites you over to come and show you everything that they do, and that really does happen in the wine industry. So yes, now to be exposed to a few of the older guys as well, which is great. You sit down with them and learn something new from them as well. So yeah, it's a wonderful opportunity to be allowed into that sort of position.
Gordon spoke at some length about the philosophy of giving back that underpins so much of the work that the guild does. If you've had a bit of time to think about it, and I'm sure you have, if you look at what you're going to do for the guild will do a huge amount for you, obviously. What would your legacy be? What would you like to be able to give to the guild, to do with the guild, to really take advantage of this role that you now have, to be able to put something back into the world of wine through it?
Yeah, I think, if you look at associations like this, it's a lot about taking part, a lot about being there and actually attending all of the functions and trying to contribute positively, whether the guys sitting opposite me say, "Oh, jeepers, I would never do that," or whatever, but you've got to give back the experience that you've learned in your career to help the guild, to raise the profile of the guild, to help all of the guild members make better wines. I think that's going to be a big part of what I would like to put back. But then obviously there's the protégé program. I've had many interns here at Kearmont over the years, and I really enjoy having the interns, because not only are you teaching them something, but you also, in teaching them, they're asking you questions, which is picking your brain, and they say, "Okay, well, why are we doing this whole bunch?" And you've got to actually explain why you're doing something. And so I'd really like to get involved with that as well in future. As a new member, I think I'm just going to see how it goes for a year, but I definitely think that it's something which I'm interested in giving back in terms of that protégé program and having them, the protégés, come and work at Kearmont.
That is such a terrific aspect of an industry that really does look after its own, and has never needed to more after the last year and a half. Our third and final new member is Richard Kershaw, who fits into that space a bit like Ken Forrester, where I've had people ask, does he really exist or is it just a brand name? Well, he certainly does exist, and he's now a member of the Guild. Richard, welcome to the show. Welcome and congratulations on becoming part of the Guild. What does that mean to you as a real professor of the art of winemaking?
Well, it's firstly wonderful to be part of the Guild, and secondly, before I even get to that last point, it's wonderful to be told that I'm one of the 3 young winemakers, having reached 51 last year. So that's even better. But no, I think that being part of an operation like the Guild is clearly well, firstly, it's a very big honor for me personally, but I think it's also a chance to exchange what I like is geekery and interesting information, and that exchange of information leads to you and others, hopefully, all of us actually making much better wine, which in the long term is what the object of the exercise is for both South Africa and any other guilds around the world. But I know this one is a very special one here. But the concept of being able to share ideas openly, as you mentioned earlier, is very, 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 very critical and underpins to me the whole Guild. And if I do tend to distract, but if I can say one small story which actually emphasizes this unique ability to be convivial, is that when I was working for a winery a while back, we had I had an assistant winemaker who wanted to go and make wines overseas, and the new management, who were extremely corporate and had come from a very high level finance background, had absolutely no interest and couldn't understand why anybody would want to work for another company. It's a bit like sort of, whatever I can't think, and Anderson working for, Goldman Sachs. They just thought it was extraordinary that anybody would want to do that. They're going to find all their secrets and they're going to be, all this sort of thing. And I think that that's the whole point. The wine industry isn't driven by this. Well, we're not. We like to feel we can be driven by a financial objective, but unfortunately, it's not necessarily something that is genuinely that what we drive for. Is actually the enjoyment and pleasure, as you heard from Erika as well as Alex, is that we are into that convivial relationship where we can all exchange ideas, and we don't feel that there's sort of a hard competitive edge. There's not some special mystery secret like that you have in these big corporate companies, and I think that's really important. So the Guild is an important touchstone, because to me, being part of it is that ability to share ideas, and also I think the tastings and part of the protégé program, all these are part of the add-ons that make it so interesting. I mean, I do like my tastings, and I'm very excited to be able to be part of that program as well, and be able to taste fabulous wines, because that's what we need to do. We need to have touch points and perception on what the wines are being made around the world, so that we ourselves can make better wines here in South Africa.
You kind of preempted my next question, which was to ask exactly that, the importance of having this closely knit group of people at a time when the wine industry is coming off a very bruising 18 months or so. So I'll redirect it ever so slightly and ask you a similar question to the one I did, Erika. When you get the call from Gordon, what was the reaction?
Well, I mean, as an emotional type of person, I definitely was extremely excited, and it was wonderful to hear that news back in it was in the end of November, early December, and to be part of something that I've known about, obviously, since I've been in South Africa for the last 23 years, and known obviously a lot of members in it. So it was wonderful. I mean, part of the background is the nomination, and to have people nominate you who feel that you are of the quality to be part of the membership is also critical, because they are also putting their sort of thing on the line and saying, well, I think this person is of a caliber. So to be accepted and then obviously voted in by a majority of members is that validation and excitement that you then and the reward of obviously being part of something very special.
Which you are indeed. I think that is a really great endorsement to get, because it means that the best of the best feel that you are one of them. So great to see you so happy about it. But I think that the Guild as a whole shares that sense of emotion. We've got some of your wine to taste, and we're going to compare it, in particular the wine of your new boss, so to speak. So let me head back to the chairman and Mr. Newton Johnson, sir. We've got some wine here, which allows me to ask you another question about the Guild. This is the Cape Winemakers Guild, the Gordon Newton Johnson 2019 Chardonnay, which is actually so good it could almost have been made by Gordon's wife. That's how good it is. Give us an idea, Gordon. It's obviously a very specifically labelled wine. Explain to people what this range is, how it's made, why it's made, and the role that it plays within the guild.
I think the being part of the guild is also trying to come up with special wines, special cuvées that can be put onto an auction, which also helps to fund the protégé program, but just to make something exciting for the collectors, for the trade, and something exclusive. So we encourage, or I wouldn't say encourage, we have to demand that our members make a special cuvée, an exclusive cuvée just for the auction. So it's the only place that you can get hold of these wines. And yeah, I mean, with every member, they get there by having, by having excellence and, a great track record. And I think the auction wines also just give them an opportunity to, I'd say, experiment a little, but just sometimes ask some different questions of themselves and go and look and say into a special parcel or even a special site within a vineyard, and to make something small, because these wines are made in small lots. The usual size that go onto the auction are about 30 to 60 cases, so it's not a lot of wine. But yeah, it's all about creating that special cuvée that you can't find anywhere else. So with the wine that I put on, I gave you my wine, which was on the last auction, and that's a single vineyard of ours called Sanford. It's actually a vineyard just below from where I live, and it's quite different to all the other vineyards that we have on our farm. It tends to have, for me, increased complexity. It's got a lot of richness as well, but also energy. It comes from one of our south-facing vineyards and the cooler slopes, so it ripens quite long and really develops well in its ripening. So that was it for me. Was looking within our family vineyard Chardonnay and looking, what can I take out of that? What special vineyard or what special site can I look to really put out there onto the guild?
You caught me mid-sip as you finished that assessment. A wine that leaves me with just a tinge of regret, because I was unfortunately hosting an event during the course of the auction and didn't get a chance to get in the bids, which would have included this. I doubt I could have afforded it, because I suspect it went for a rather large amount of money. But there's a reason that Newton Johnson Chardonnay is so celebrated. But the fact that there is that little bit of distinction in the difference of the vineyards makes this a particularly sought after piece. And yes, I can't see this bottle lasting much longer in the Dan Really Likes Wine cellar, although it's got some competition in the Chardonnay stakes. Let's head back to the Elgin Professor and Mr. Kershaw. Richard, before we jump into this specific wine, we've got a Chardonnay of yours and a Syrah. There is nobody, I think, who comes close in South Africa to having the obsessive interest in clones and the clonal space. Just give us an idea, firstly, in layman's terms, what is a clone other than a character on a rather bad Star Wars movie? And then what is it about this area of winemaking that has obviously tapped into the wine soul of Richard Kershaw quite so deeply?
Well, yeah, I think just to answer the first part, the clone it's really just a cutting. So if you can think of a nursery that was propagated wherever it would have been in South Africa or Australia or France, but taking, let's say, France, because they've had obviously nurseries for many years, or pépiniéristes they call them, and obviously they would have been looking at clones or Chardonnay or any particular variety. They would have been looking at propagating or noticing things that they would look to want as look for certain attributes that particular perhaps the particular person who's buying the clone or buying the Chardonnay or whatever grape, or whatever purpose they want it. So, for example, maybe in the 50s, when quantity was everything, they wanted to look for those grapevines that had very high quantities, and they would propagate those to then have more vines that would then have more large quantities, because clearly that was the thing. Another one may be those Chardonnay vines or whatever vines that did very well on particular soil types, which perhaps had problems with drought or something like that, with an attribute that they prosper in those conditions. They would have been taken out, and then cuttings would have been taken, propagated out to then show more of that, to show that particular distinction. In fact, it wouldn't be a one-stage process. It would take many stages to do that, because you would have to plot them out and then find from that really quite good sort of attribute of, say, drought resistance. Then there may be one that's even better, and so on and so forth. So it's a whole process. It takes many years, decades, in fact. And clearly, the other aspect is quality. Particular quality attributes that you find in these particular clones, and then plant those out. So it's really just now, if you look at it in terms of they're just versions of Chardonnays, just sort of species, so to speak. I suppose, sorry to be topical, but sort of like different COVIDs. They are basically different subspecies that have slightly different elements of Chardonnay that perhaps we are familiar with. When we have wines that are quite bright and rich, there may be some element of the clone talking. So these are part of the mix, but I think it's important to recognize that the clone is really a small part of that mix. So into your second question, where does it make up? And I've always said, really, with regards to the climate here in Elgin, why I was attracted to it was I tried to look at things in terms of metrics. And obviously the metric that we listen to from France is terroir, and terroir is a rather intangible sort of thing. It's a bit like trying to catch a jelly. So it's really all about a sense of place, and a sense of place can be easily split up. We can talk about climate and soil and viticultural techniques, winemaking techniques, and all of these have a part to play. So obviously a good climate that's conducive to what you're growing, to be able to grow what you want to grow. I mean, clearly, you won't be able to ripen, say, Cabernet very easily here. In the same way, you won't be able to ripen, or perhaps Sauvignon or Chardonnay, something in a very hot region is going to be more challenging, or Pinot. So you've got to sort of fit the right grape to the right climate. And those climate attributes are going to give you things which will enable you to make wines that are arguably less invasive. So, for example, if you're going to get natural acidity from a cool climate, which is what you want in a Chardonnay or, say, a Pinot, then you want to be in a cooler climate, which is going to render natural acidity or other things. There's lots of other attributes. I won't get too technical, but just as a simple sort of answer to that. And then, of course, you then add the soil types. Obviously, you want something that is interesting. I think we place a lot of emphasis on soil. The French love to place emphasis, largely because there's an awful lot invested in that. But I think that the fact that it's got some drainage, it's not too heavy, the clay, and so on and so forth. It's got the reflective qualities, and so on and so forth. Obviously, a lot of our soils are decomposed, very old soils, not like the younger soils that we see in Europe. But that's a point. And then, of course, how you're going to farm them. You're going to look for high yields, in which case you're going to lose some of the nuances that the grapes are going to give you. So you're going to look at sort of tempering that with your viticulture. There's lots of little husbandry attributes that will go into that, which are going to help on that path. And then, obviously, your winemaking. What are you going to do? Are you going to be quite invasive? Are you going to be, ultra the wine, the juice a lot? Are you going to be, adding it with lots and lots of oak, and so on and so forth? And if you're going to try and do all those things in the best way, and try and use knowledge to do arguably as little as possible. I mean, isn't that the answer? As a winemaker, you want to actually do as little as possible. You want to just make it as simple as possible without having to be invasive, adding anything or any of these things. Then I think that you get certain attributes. You start to see that sense of place through the eyes of different clones. When I see in my cellar different clones on different soil types, they are different, and they are showing small but subtle nuances, which are then interesting to me personally, and interesting in a blend going into, say, this wine, the clonal selection. So they all play a part. But perhaps if we're looking at, I say everything out of 100. So if climate is say 50% or 50 points, and soil is 20 points, and viticulture is another 10 or 15, and winemaking is another 10, you're kind of on about 90, 95 points. And maybe Clone has a few more points, maybe 2 or 3 points. It's the little tiny tweaks. And at the end of the day, one of the things, and I think, if you look at the guild members as a good example of higher end winemakers, we're all looking at trying to be in that zone. We're not necessarily that interested in making wines that are going to get 80 points. Rather using a rather sort of basic attribute, but that's not the interest. The interest is the tweaking, and I think clones are a lever to tweak. That would be my sort of short answer.
The tiny little touches that make the Kershaw wine so sought after. This is not easy stuff to get hold of. Very quickly, Richard, give us a quick introduction. There are 2 wines. We've just had some of Gordon's Chardonnay. Daryl Balfour, who's watching at the moment, says, that wasn't a sip, Dan. It looked like a swig and gulp. Great wine. I don't blame you. I don't blame me either. In fact, I took one more gulp and my glass was finished, so I might need to pour myself a little more. The very quick introduction, Richard, to the 2019 Elgin Chardonnay, just down the road from the one we tasted a moment ago, and then the Syrah that we've got here as well.
Okay, the 2019 we've just releasing now. We've often released our wines a little soon, largely because of demand, and the COVID has enabled us to just pull that little bit back, because I think that the 19 is showing really quite a tight. It's not a very expressive vintage. It's very, very tight with good acidity and quite a chalky texture or mineral quality. As a vintage, it was an in-between vintage. We whilst Elgin didn't suffer as badly as some of the regions in the drought, there was clearly an evidence more in 18 where you've got that concentration, which translated into something quite expressive and actually very delightful, but something that perhaps we'll drink sooner rather than later. The 19 kind of came back. We had a fairly average year. It was neither not that hot and that cool. It was pretty down the line. And I think we ended up picking grapes that had a tendency to give you this very kind of restrained, rake back acidity. Quite a challenging wine, arguably, as you pour it. It's a wine I would right now decant. It's still very, very young. But I think it will unfold a little bit like the 13s over the next sort of 3 or 4 years. And I think as a wine, it's showing more of that savory character rather than so much of the sort of lemony fruits that I associate with Elgin as a region, or citrus fruits. But it's very much in the sort of style that I really enjoy drinking. So it's a sort of more what's the word, chiseled style of Chardonnay. Did you want me to talk about on the Syrah too?
Yeah, just give us the 30 seconds on the Syrah, if you will.
Sure. So the Syrah is 18, and again, that's also just been released. So the Syrah to 18 is a lovely, slightly more forward wine, again, kind of reflecting the 18 vintage, which has, to me, quite a lot of, again, in Elgin, we tend to be a little bit cool for Syrah, and in fact, the last couple of vintages have been quite challenging to get the ripeness. We've ended up with slightly lower alcohols, which the consumers say they want, although I'm not always sure, but I think it is the case sometimes. But this one is about 13 and a half. The more recent ones are going to be more like 12 and a half, 12. But at this level, I think that the 18s are quite expressive. There's quite a lot of red fruit and good levels of rotundo, and rotundo being that black pepper or white pepper character that you get in Syrahs. So here in Elgin, I think we get that on a regular basis. And in years like 18, you really pick up quite a lot of pepper. But you also get that fruit character. So it's quite intense. However, 18 does really show that really classic medium weight style, which I got in 14 as well. So it's a wine that I think which is drinking really well now. It's actually drinking better than the 17, which is probably the better wine in the long term, but it's still but it's very tight, the 17, and the 18 is a little bit more forward. And to me, actually drinking beautifully right now. I've had a few bottles in the last week or so.
I can understand why. I'd urge you all to go and try them and taste them. I'm just not sure if you'll be able to get hold of them. Kershaw wine tends to vanish fairly quickly after it is made. Let's head over then to Alex. We had Alex, as I'm sure you've seen towards the end of last year on the show, discussing the Amphitheatre, which is the new blend, and a splendid blend at that. We've got something different today. We have got the 2016 Kearmont Syrah. Sits between those 15 and 17 Stellenbosch red vintages that get so much attention. Give us your thoughts on 16, a red vintage for you guys, Alex, and then this particular 2016 Syrah.
Yeah, I think for me, 2016, the wines have turned out to be incredible. The vintage was really tough. It was in the drought. I remember the vineyards really battling with quite a lot of stress. We picked very early to sort of mitigate the stress and the quickly rising sugars. And some of the reds that have resulted have been some of my favorites. I quite like the tough vintages, the ones which don't run according to plan. I think often the wines end up being more interesting that way. And this is just another example. You know, the Syrah, I was actually through making it and what the wine was like at early stages, I was a little bit apprehensive about it, but it's really come right in the bottle and is really drinking beautifully now. So yeah, it's turned into a real stunner.
It also is a time where, as well as considering this particular 2022 vintage, you have to start thinking about your own very first Cape Winemakers Guild wine. Have you given that any thought yet?
Yeah, I think part of being a winemaker and well, certainly myself, is to be a bit of a dreamer and be creative. I really think that's winemaking allows you to express your creativity. And so, yeah, so the moment that I heard that I was allowed to be on the guild, I started thinking about different ideas. I would like to tie it into what we're doing here at Kearmont, but do something a little bit more interesting. Something, you know, maybe do an unusual type blend, or you know, but still related to the Kearmont wines. Everything that we do here is all estate, so we don't have some obscure vineyards out in Ceres or wherever, or in Elam or anywhere like that. Everything comes from here. So I would like my guild wines to relate to what I'm doing here at Kearmont in some way, but also have a point of difference, obviously.
Both fun and ever so slightly daunting, I would imagine. Reginald Peckler joining us from Cheetah Plains, as he does so often. Kearmont has something about it. Recently tried the range, and I left my heart just there, Alex. Not the first person who has been swept off their feet by Alex, but in some cases it's been by his wine. Also watching is Lisa Harlow. Erika still makes my favorite Cinso. So exciting. You will have your own facility this year from which to produce the wine, which over the last few years have got so much acclaim, and with very good reason. One of them is the Cinso Grenache Noir Syrah, which I have here. Ms. Obermeyer, introduce me to this 2018 from your now famous stable.
Yeah, this remains. I know you're not supposed to have favorites. They're all my favorites, but I find this wine just. It drinks beautiful on a summer day, it drinks beautiful on a winter day, and even in between. And what I love about the signature of the Erika wines are really to capture essence of the place where they grow. I think that is something as a winemaker, if you can tell that story. We're all storytellers, and it's such a privilege to be able to tell the story of a vineyard. I'm very lucky to work with incredible vineyards from all over the Western Cape. The winelands is a beautiful place to go and find these special vineyards. So what I love about the Syrah, it started out trying to showcase Stellenbosch in a slightly different way. I think it's time for us to look at what we can do different. And I started out wanting to show more of an elegance and slightly more modern way of Stellenbosch Syrah. And I thought, what can I do to even enhance that? And it just turns out that a little bit of Grenache and a little bit of Cinso, it's the makeup to this blend. It just brings that Syrah fruit forward. It tones down a little bit on the tannin structure, and it's a way of expressing these beautiful vineyards. So it's a multi-layered wine, not necessarily so extracted, but big tannins doesn't need to always be in your face. So it's a wine that we chill, and it just shows you this incredible Syrah fruit, but then that red fruit coming through from both the Grenache and the Syrah, the Cinsault, just adds to a very elegant wine. And 18 was incredibly difficult vintage. I think I try and focus on the positives always. So I looked at 18 and I thought, we all struggled with heat and drought. And I particularly went out and harvested a little bit earlier. Stellenbosch, I think the 18s are going to impress us. I'm finding all my reds from the 18 vintage really lovely. They're very expressive. And Stellenbosch showed us that even in tough years, you can produce great wines.
There's a fascinating comparison to be had. I've just been, while you've been talking, drinking the two yours along with the Kiermont Syrah, and just the Syrah on its own, drinking with they both got such elegance to them. But yours are the Cinsault and the Grenache. It's just such a wonderful lightness of touch, which on a hot Johannesburg afternoon is very, very welcome. And it's such a great thing to do, dropping this kind of lighter style of red into the fridge for 10, 15 minutes, just take the sting out of it. And just makes it very hard to stop drinking it, Erika. So not for the first time, you have much to be responsible for. Before I head back to our chair one last time, I want to go back to our young protege, to Mosima. What are you most excited about in your first year as a protege?
I'll say is meeting everyone else in the program and everyone who graduated and still in the program as well, just to tell me the experiences and just to learn forward from what they've been doing throughout, and just looking forward to 2022 as well and how everything will be.
I'm glad to hear that 2022 holds so much excitement. It's lovely to hear good stories looking ahead to the year of such a difficult last stretch. I'm also looking forward to 2022, Mosima, but I'm also looking forward to 2032, which I'd like you to diarise, because I'm going to give you a call to come back onto Dan Really Likes Wine. I'd like to know what do you think the story will be in 2032? Ideally, where would you be? What would you have done? What would you like to have achieved? Where would your wine story have got to 10 years from now?
Thank you. I think I have to start by doing my harvest overseas. That's what I'm excited about after the program. And maybe doing my wine as well, having my own brand under the name Mosima or any name. But I think it'll be a great day, just looking forward to it. Just not sure exactly what, but something is going to happen.
It's still very, very early days, but great to see you have that sort of ambition. How much, Mosima, does having somebody like Erika as a guild member, such a successful woman winemaker, inspire you as a young woman coming into the industry?
It's all about inspiration, motivation. So just seeing another woman in the program as a member, it just excites me to just see that actually there's that open door somewhere. So it's motivating me to work very hard as well, and then just seeing what the future holds.
Whatever that future is, I suspect it will be bright, and with the guild behind you for a few years, you've got the most wonderful resource to give the career such a great kick in the right direction. And we'll watch Mosima's story very closely indeed. Grant van der Waal, who's watching, says, so nice to meet new guild members, know Erika's wine, and we're always impressed, excited for the future. Thank you, Grant. Thanks for watching the show. Daryl Balfour. Daryl, now I'm worried Alex talking about something unusual, surfing too much with Peter Volser. I don't think anybody can touch Peter Volser for being completely unusual, and in many cases just completely daft when it comes to what he makes. But we will watch that Cape Winemakers Guild from Alex very, very closely. Mr. Chair, before I get your final thoughts on your tenure ahead, just give me a quick snapshot. Your three new members, they've all got wonderful stories. They all make terrific wine. What was it about each of the three that you felt really really stood out when it came to the Guild, saying, yep, these are the three we'd like us to join in 2022?
I think firstly, one thing you can say about all three of them is that they've all built up their businesses and their brands from the ground up, which is extremely difficult to do, and they've done it so successfully. Every one of them has a rapport, in the international world, in the international arena as well. I mean, if you look at Erika, I remember her still from days back of, pounding the pavements of London while she was still at Graham Beck and us busy selling wines. And, her whole transformation into her, building up her own brand. And it's just been stratospheric for her as well. I think the cause of that is probably, you can just see the experience in her of how well it's been done, and how classy and refined her wines are. Same with Alex. Alex has also come a long way from, I think, almost 15 years ago when Kearmont was started. And, obviously he's had some financial backing with the owner there as well, but it's been, I think, all his own concept and creating the vineyards, creating the wines behind them. I think it's just been an amazing one-man job in a sense. And then with Richard, the Wikipedia, he's a wealth of knowledge. He knows just about everything, and it's always great to talk to him and to pick his brain on certain things. And what he's done, I mean, firstly, for those out there who don't know, he's a master of wine as well, which is one hell of a feat to accomplish on its own, never mind being a guild member. And just the way that he's helped put Elgin on the map with his amazing Chardonnays, these racy, energetic, very exciting Chardonnays. So each one of them has their own personality in their wines, and I think that's exactly what the guild requires or demands from a member is to bring their own set of experience. There's no substitute for an experience. So yeah.
You've got three terrific additions there. There is also, I genuinely feel, a terrific addition in form of the chair, Gordon. And I love the fact that you've got the role, and I know you're going to throw yourself into it over the tenure. If I speak to you, not dissimilarly to or I asked Mosima where she'd be in a decade, if I sit down with you at the end of your time as chair of the Cape Winemakers Guild, what would you like to be able to say to me that you've done during your time?
There'd be a lot of things I'd like to say on a personal level and my own ambitions for our wines, but just with my involvement in the guild, I think there's such a great there's so many winemakers that I think that are going to come through very soon. The winemakers in their 20s, in their 30s that are really starting to create their own niches for themselves. A diverse lot, a very creative lot, and if one day I can kind of finish off and hang up my boots and kind of look at the wine industry and just, see the creativity still there and, all the new people, that would make me happy. I think I could retire one day very, very happy with that result.
All right. Well, I'll hold you to it. We'll have a chat to you in a couple of years' time. But hopefully we'll be speaking to you well before then, because I've promised your reprobate brother that I'll join him for a Chardonnay breakfast at Newton Johnson. I need to come and see Erika's new space. I need to come out with my crew and do a proper exploration of the world of clones with the professor. And I swore to Alex, hand on heart, in front of Mr. Kilpin that I'd be along to Kearmont and maybe come visit Hartenberg as well. So, guys, look forward to seeing you all in person. But for now, congratulations. It's a really exciting year, I feel, for South African wine. particularly for you guys. I know the Guild is only part of your wine story for the year ahead, but I think it's a very important one, and it's very clear how much it means to all of you in your respective roles. So, Gordon, good luck. I know you've got a great team. I know Sam's with you, Morne's with you, Carl's with you. I think we've got JD there as well. Some really good people on that board of the Guild. You've got 3 proper rock stars. You basically signed Ronaldo, Messi, and Neymar in one go. So it's a fairly good effort. And I think there's another young superstar just starting out there as well. He's got a really bright future. So Mosima, good luck with your year. Good luck with your time with the Guild. Richard, Alex, Erika, lovely to see all 3 of you. And congratulations. And Gordon, best of luck with the Guild. And it goes without saying, whatever Dan Really Likes Wine can do to support the Guild and the great work you do in the wine industry, we're right behind you, very happily and very proudly so.
Cheers, Dan. Thank you.
Cheers.
So there we go. Mosima Mabelele is our new protege. Alex and Richard and Erika are new members of the Guild. And Gordon Newton-Johnson of Newton-Johnson fame is the new chair as the Cape Winemakers Guild takes on a very, very different look with a whole new crew on top. Well done, goes without saying, to Andrea Molyneux, who stepped down as chair. Very successful 2 years. She did a terrific job. Now there are very inspiring winemakers, but now the chance for the new team to keep up this wonderful legacy that the Guild has. Legacy is probably too strong a word, but we do have plenty of wine shows on the go. But Dan Really Likes Wine. On Monday, I have dispatched an all-star quartet to branches of Pick and Pay across the country. I've done likewise myself. Everybody armed with 150 Rand. Tony Price, who set up the Black Cellar Club and does a great job connecting America and South Africa with wine, will be joining us. So too, celebrity chef Pete Goff Wood, Sabosh Mafu from KFM, a great wine connoisseur, and we'll also have Duncan Savage, member of the Cape Winemakers Guild, and they will all be joining me on Monday evening. 150 Rand, a bottle of red, a bottle of white from their local Pick and Pay. What did they come up with? We'll find out on the show on Monday. We've also got a special show with the Cape Wine Auction coming up, and look out next Tuesday, where for the very first time, our New Look magazine style show goes live, and that will feature Zoo, David Higgs's new spot, Tanashi Nyamudoka of Kamusha fame, the former head sommelier at the Test Kitchen, and new releases with Stuart Buerta from Takara over lunch at Marble. So that's all of next week for now. Thanks to our Cape Winemakers Guild for being part of the show this evening. Good luck to all of them. I will see you back on the show on Monday evening. I've got some great wine to finish off. Enjoy your evening. We'll see you next week. Goodbye. To join the Pick and Pay Wine Club, simply SMS your smart shopper number to 36775. It's absolutely free, and you'll get for yourself 3 times the smart shopper points on every bottle of wine bought. You'll also get a 20% discount on 10 different wines each month, a 25% discount on a case of wine, and a Magnum, some terrific competitions and invitations to awesome events.